Hi y'all, Merry Vlogmas Day 3. So today we're in my craft room and I'm working on making a tote bag. So you really need to excuse the mess in my craft room. Once it is all cleaned up, which probably won't be till after Christmas because I have so many projects going on, I promise I will give you a full tour. But right now it's a total disaster. I probably have, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 projects going on in here all at one time. So today we're making a tote bag. My father-in-law passed away back in June, but I saved all of his jeans and his Hawaiian shirts. And when my mom and my dad passed away, I made everybody a quilt, a rag quilt out of their clothes. But because they already have 2 rag quilts, I decided this time I'll make a tote bag. And that'll be another thing that is functional and they can use, but will carry on lots of memories of their grandpa. So I finished one, and let me tell you a little bit, well, I'll show you the one that I finished so you can see what I'm talking about. So here's the tote bag that I finished. It's pretty large. It was about 23 by 19, I believe. And you can see I mixed in khaki and light denim and dark denim and even some gray denim. I kind of mixed it all up for this. And these straps, I wish I would have bought more of these, but this strapping fabric, I don't know if you can see it, I bought at the International Quilt Festival in Houston, knowing I wanted to make some of these tote bags. And this is what the inside is. So when he would go to Hawaii, he would often have them custom make shirts for him. And so they would use the really good quilting cotton and make custom made Hawaiian shirts. So there's even the pocket. I don't know if you can tell. I even used the pocket from his shirt in the inside. So I used 3 pockets on the front and I used 3 pockets on the back. So there's lots of pockets. And then I also used, I'll show you in a second, the product I used, but it's the Soft and Stable product to give the tote bag a lot of just thickness, durability, all that good stuff. So this is the one that I finished and I was so proud of it. I did show my youngest daughter. I was like, oh look, I made a tote bag. And so she loved it, but she asked, because she's quite short, if I could make it this way and have this strap coming this way. Does that make sense? So it's longer and not as tall, because she thought this would hang down too much for her when she's walking. I thought this was a good length for me personally, but she liked it to go this way. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be doing. One of the things that we both love is, you see, I even cut up his jeans that he wore for painting. So the jeans that have like the paint splotches on, or see, there's like a little stain on that pocket. There's even some that just have really bad wear and tear lines. So look at this pocket. They just are so much more special to us because you know, hey, Grandpa wore these when he was painting something. And then this one, like the pocket's all like roughed up and worn out. So that's even so cool and more special. So that's what I'm gonna work on today. Is I have one at least more to make, and if I don't get mine personally made until after Christmas, that's no big deal. But I will making 3 total, 1 for each of the girls and then 1 for myself. So how I started out is I just took his jeans and I sat in front of the TV and I cut them all apart. And what I did is I cut off that really thick seam that jeans have, and then it just makes for a nice thinner piece of fabric to sew with. And then we looked up online some ideas. My youngest daughter and I both. Look at this one. See, I need to cut this one and use it. This is like a big favorite of ours with all that paint on it. So I will definitely put that in the pile to be cut up. But so we had looked up some ideas for denim jean tote bags. And the youngest daughter, really liked the ones where some of the pieces were rectangular shape and some of the pieces were square. So I cut a lot of them 6x6 and I cut some of them 6x8. In the pockets, I even did 7x7. So we kind of really wanted the size to be a little wonky and not to have that perfectly lined up corners type of piecing you would do in a normal quilt. So first I cut up the jeans, and the next step is I cut it down into my squares and my sizes. And then I laid it all out so there was a good combination of the colors. And of course there's a front side and a back side. So each pile I made had 2 pieces in it, was what I tried to do. So I will show you here how I laid it out. So this is the one my daughter actually laid out. You can see. So remember, she wants hers to be wider and not as deep, okay? And then over here is one that I have laid out that I'll work on for myself eventually. May not be before Christmas, just kind of depends on how much time I have. And then what I did is I took rows and I started sewing some rows together. Now, because my daughter changed her mind on the whole design thing, these aren't all sewn together, but you can see this is a row that I sewed together. So now I'll just need to add this piece on, and that row will be finished. So I'm going to be working on sewing the rows, and then I'll come back and show you how I sew the rows to each other and how I make the lining, etc. So stay tuned, I'll be right back. What I want to talk to you about is sewing on denim. It's always a great idea to use a denim needle, and it's also a good idea, especially when you're sewing through a very thick seam like we have on pockets. This thicker seam here, you can tell, is to go really slow. So I have come really close to breaking a needle on this. Luckily, I have a walking foot on to help me get through all of that bulk, and I just take it really slow. My seams may not be the most perfect seam, 1/4 inch seams, but I'm not sewing a quilt, and I'm not needing to necessarily do perfect 1/4 inch seams, because when you go over that pocket area, sometimes you get, if you can see here, see how it gets a little like curvy because you're going over this big bulk with your walking foot, and so it kind of curves around it. Don't worry about that too much. It's just a cute little tote bag for my girls, and it's not going in a quilt show and getting judged and whatever. But the other thing is, I would definitely use a denim needle. The denim needle is just a little bit stronger, and it helps going through all of that bulk. So you can also shorten your stitches a little bit, and that'll give it a little stronger seam as well. I didn't do that because I'm doing so much sewing on here, and it's got that soft and stable layer that it's gonna be a pretty good tight solid seam for this anyway. But you can say here, I'm just sewing a couple pieces together, then I'm stopping, and then I'll be adding the next one on. I'm doing it like this. You could chain piece it, but I'm doing it this way just so I can make sure I don't get out of order with my lightness and darkness of denim. I make sure my pockets are going the right way, etc. You don't want to make a mistake and have to rip out on denim. That's not the easiest thing to do. You can do it, but It's not very fun to do. I will press at the end. So right now I'm just sewing this whole row together. I did backstitch at the end just to make sure it's nice and secure. Okay, so now I'm gonna add, look, I'm making sure my pockets are all going the same direction, adding my last pocket. So that means I need to slow down just a little bit more. So earlier I had mentioned that my size of my squares were varied. So, oops, and it looks like it just came unthreaded. Ugh, I hate that. So when you do some at 6" and some at 7" that's fine, but you need to make sure your whole row is 7". So that's what I had to do. My daughter had laid out some pieces in the pocket row. So the one I made earlier, the whole pocket row was 7" for one of the dimensions. And when my daughter laid out the pieces she liked, some were 7", some were 6". So I had to cut some more denim and adjust so that they were all the 7" size. So here's a row all sewn together and they're all 7". Now the other 2 rows are only gonna be 6" in the length. And that's okay, because the whole row gets sewn together. One strip is getting sewn together. But if this was 7" and this was 6" and this was 7", it just wasn't gonna work. So I had to go and adjust that a little bit. All right, so I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about, especially if you're an experienced sewer. So this does not have a pattern. I just kind of made it up based on tote bags that I have made in the past. So I just kind of looked at the other tote bags and decided how I wanted to do it. I have made several tote bags in the past, so I just kind of did my own little made-up pattern. So right next to my sewing machine, I have a little ironing station. This was something that my friend showed me how to make from IKEA. So it's an IKEA little cart, and you put this little ironing table on it. It bolts on it, and then actually I think we bolted it on to some wood. So you lose the top cart container, but you still have 2 more drawers or 2 more shelves underneath. So what I did is assemble that. It's on wheels, so anytime I need to move around in my sewing room, the cart can be moved very easily. So it's really come in handy. I love it. I'm ironing on a wool mat. So whenever the wool of the mat heats up, and it does get quite warm, it helps to iron and press from both sides then. So it's heating up your fabric from the bottom because your wool mat is already warm, and you're heating it up with your iron on the top, okay? So here you go. I just press the seams to the sides. Because it's denim, it doesn't press perfectly, but you still need to press it because it won't lay flat and it'll be harder to quilt later when we get to the quilting phase. So you really do need to press your seams. Some people really believe in setting your seams. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. This is denim. It's a really thick fabric. If I'm doing some very intricate piecing on a quilt, I will set my seam. Setting a seam means you take your seam just like you sewed it, you fold it over, and you iron it. Then you're gonna open your seam up and sew to one side or the other, or even open it up in the middle, your choice, however you like to press your seams. So first you set it by ironing on it exactly the way you sewed it, and then you pull your pieces apart and you press to one side or the other, or you go ahead and press it open, however you want. All right, so next I'm gonna be sewing rows together. That's what I'm gonna be doing next. So I only have 3 rows to this tote bag since she wants it to be shorter. This is my middle row. Here is my bottom row. Now, the bottom row has a rectangle in it. So these are not gonna line up. My middle row is 7 inches. So they are definitely not going to line up. So I don't even have to worry about pinning my corners and lining them up and making them just perfect. I'll show you that in another video, how I do that. But I get to just lay it out, put it together, and I can pin or not pin, my choice. It is going to be a little off because remember the pockets were 7 inches, but the this row was only 6 inches. So this one's gonna have to get trimmed down a little bit, so it is gonna be a little bit off, and that's okay. So I'm just gonna lay it out. I'm not even gonna pin it, and I'm just gonna go ahead and sew. So you can see I have all this extra that'll be getting trimmed off eventually. And this big thick seam here is gonna get trimmed off, which will be nice. I don't have to deal with that anymore. Denim is always interesting to sew with. Sometimes people with denim do a 1/2 inch seam allowance instead of a 1/4 inch, but I'm only doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm doing a normal stitch length. Now you notice I was going pretty fast on that one. I was not going over a pocket, so I could go a little bit faster. Okay, and here's the next one. And I'll come back when I have all my rows sewn together. Hi y'all. Okay, so it is completely sewn together. As you can see here, it's completely sewn together. The front and the back pieces. The next step I need to do is quilt it to the stabilizer. Now you can use Soft and Stable. The product that I'm using today is this. I haven't used this product before, but it feels a lot like Soft and Stable. The nice thing is this product is fusible. So I can iron the top of my tote bag and it will stay flat while I'm quilting and not move. This is the Soft and Stable product. It does not have an adhesive on it, but it's very similar. Another product you could use is this thick Pellon stabilizer. It just says Pellon Peltex 70 Ultra Firm Stabilizer. So this is a nice thick one as well. You just need to make sure that it is washable and it won't bunch up or anything when it's washed. So you just have to make sure it's okay for the washing machine. I know these products are. This one here is great for tote bags, and also that Soft and Stable one. So next, what I did is I just laid the tote bag out on top of the stabilizer. You can see here, I just laid it out, okay? And the good thing is I planned my tote bag so that's the same width that the stabilizer comes. So the stabilizer comes at 17.5, and my finished front and back of the tote bag are almost exactly that dimension. So I just take it and cut it off. I'm going to square it up once I'm done quilting. So for now, just take it, cut it off. Then the next thing I'm going to do is take it over here to my ironing board. Now remember, this is a fusible. So if you noticed, I have the plastic mat covering up my wool mat. Because if it gets hot on the bottom, like the wool mat is supposed to, and it gets hot on the top, then this interfacing is going to stick to my wool mat, and that won't be good. So I'm just kind of lining up my top so that it's on here pretty good. And then I'm gonna go ahead and iron it down. You do have to let it sit for a few minutes for it to adhere. I already did a test on one of them. I'm just kind of ironing it, letting it sit for a bit. And I still went ahead and threw some pins in because I just didn't feel like it was completely stuck on there. But after I ironed a spot, I just went ahead and threw a pin in it to make sure it stays nice and flat. So when I'm quilting, I don't have any issues. Okay, so I'm just gonna iron it down and pin it. When I get done doing that step, I took it over to the sewing machine and I did my quilting. And here's how I quilted it. So when you're quilting, you have to be careful not to get your pockets. So I made sure I did on the line, I didn't really stitch in the ditch. I did like, you know, a little bit of a seam allowance away from, a little bit of quilting away from the seam allowance. And I just always did it on the seam that did not have the pocket. So one's up here and one's right down below. And then even this one is on this side of the pocket. So I just did a grid pattern. That's all I did. And where they purposely don't line up, I just went straight and did my grid pattern. And I did go ahead and sew all the way around the whole front. I did the whole front and did all the way around so that it does not come undone or have any problems when I'm putting my seams in. So here's what it looks like. The next step is just to square it up really well. So I will put it on my cutting mat and just kind of line it up. This is at the 4-inch mark. This is at the 27-inch mark. And I'm just gonna give it a good square up so that when I'm sewing the two sides together, they're the exact same size and even. So I will see you back in a minute after I'm finished quilting the other side and squaring them up. And then I'll show you how I start putting it together. Hi y'all. Okay, so I trimmed it up, the front and the back, to make it square. So I squared it up and made sure both were exactly the same size. I pinned them together, and now I'm just gonna sew the bottom and the two sides, leaving the top completely open for now. So here we go. So next I'm gonna box off the corners. So what I do to box it off is I fold in the corner. So I'm gonna take my side seam and my bottom seam and I just line it up like this. I can feel inside that it's all lined up, okay? And then I'm boxing them off by measuring 3 inches down. So I get my ruler and I measure from the corner seam 3 inches down. You see that? And then I'm gonna mark it. You can mark on here with just a pencil. A pencil works fine. So I'm marking it like that. And then I'm gonna take this and draw a line all the way across. And this is going to be my stitching line. Okay. And I go ahead and pin it so it stays in place. And the next thing I'm going to do is stitch right along this line. And I already did it on this corner. So this corner is already stitched. And when I'm done stitching it, then I go ahead and trim it off. Okay. So let me sew this side, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I turn it right side out. Okay, I'm done boxing off both sides. I'm going to turn it right side out. Now I still have a lining to make for this. This bag is going to be completely lined, and I have the handles to put on, and that's it. Then I'm done. So you can easily make this in an afternoon or an evening, especially if you've already cut your jeans. And at the end, I'm going to show you a couple other ideas of what to make with recycled denim jeans. Okay, so here it is. It's a nice, good sized tote bag for her. I think she's going to really like it. And it's got 4 small pockets because her pockets are on the side. I had to go in on the seam allowance. So there are 4 pockets, but they're going to be more on the side and they're going to be smaller. So here you go. All right, I'll be back in a second once I start getting the lining ready. So remember, the lining is made out of my father-in-law's Hawaiian shirts. So it's a really fun, cute lining that she'll have. Okay, so I decided to put another pocket on. I felt like these pockets were just a little too small for fitting an iPhone. You could fit like pens and stuff like that or lipstick, but you can't really fit anything huge. So I thought an iPhone needed its own little pocket. So what I did here is I just completely cut out the pocket. If you can see here, I completely cut the pocket out. So it's not going to have a back. The back is the bag. So then I'm just sewing all the way around. Being careful to go slow, take your time, because I did break a needle sewing it on already. So I just have 1 or 2 sides left to go, but on one of the sides I broke the needle. So here it is, and when you're sewing, of course, you have to scrunch it up and keep it out from underneath the back side. You don't want to catch the back side. So I did take my little extension table off so that I had an easier time scrunching it up under here. Okay, and definitely pin it really well. That helped. So I'm just going to start here. I would back stitch a few times because this pocket is going to get some wear and tear putting the phone in and out. I have it on turtle. I think I can move it a little bit higher. The speed, I have it really, really slow so that I don't accidentally go too fast. So there we go. So I'm just gonna sew this. I think I can go just a little faster. All the way around. Feeling underneath to make sure it's not getting caught. When I get to the corner, I can turn and angle it to follow the jeans. Okay, I just double checked, made sure my back wasn't under there. Okay, pivot again. And I'm going to go ahead, even though I already did this side, it won't hurt to reinforce it and go up the side again. Edges of the pockets are the worst. Okay, and there you have it. Oh, it didn't. there's the pocket. All right, so now I'm gonna make the lining, and basically what I do for the lining is I've cut the shirt apart and cut any of the seams and the buttons and things off. So I just have like basically flat fabric. So now I have to sew the fabric back together to get the same dimensions of this tote bag. And then once I have my fabric made, then I go ahead and sew the two sides and the bottom. I box it, and then I have my whole lining made. So I'll see you back in just a few minutes. Bye. So I'm sewing the two fronts of the shirt together. So I cut off the buttons already in that whole piece of the shirt. So now I'm just taking the two fronts and sewing it together to give me the biggest piece possible. And then I'm going to trim it up to match the same size of the tote bag. Now keep in mind, your tote bag can be whatever size you want it to be. I think the first one was like 19 by 24. This one was 17 and a quarter by 23 and a quarter. So it's just a little bit smaller than the first one I made, because remember, it's a whole different design. So I'm just sewing my fronts together. I'll iron it, lay it out, trim it up to that 17 and a quarter. Okay, so let me show you what I did here. The front, after I sewed the two pieces together, still was not quite enough for the 17 and a quarter. Up here at the top where the arm sleeves, the armholes were, it goes in. So I just took pieces of the sleeve and sewed an angle, and now I'm gonna press it open and then take it back to my cutting board and straighten it up. And then I'll have my 17 and a quarter. The width for down in the chest and stomach area was fine. It was totally fine. It was just up here at the arms, it went in some, so I need my piece to be a little bit bigger. So I went ahead and sewed it. Oh, this flap here, so because my daughter wants it the opposite way, I undid the pocket at the top. So now I'm gonna sew, or on one side, sorry. So I'm gonna sew down the top, the bottom, and the side, and then she'll still have an interior pocket, okay? So here's what I did. I took the little pocket apart. I'm gonna sew it and then have it where it's open correctly on the correct side. Here's the lining. I sewed it together and I boxed my corners. You can see they're boxed. Now I'm not gonna turn it right side out because I have to sew the bag and the lining with right sides together. But before I do that, I need to add the straps. So the next step is I'm gonna be marking, I don't have to sew them on, I just have to pin and mark where I'm gonna be putting my straps. So when I sew my lining and my bag together, the straps will be getting caught in that area. The other thing I like to do with the straps is when I sew it, I'm gonna go back and forth over it a couple of times just to make sure they're really strong and secure. All right, so I'll show you that in just a second. Okay, so I'm gonna put the straps, so it's gonna be facing down. I'm gonna put it just on the inside of this quilting seam that I did right here. And I'm gonna go ahead and give it 2 pins. The pins are gonna be sticking up this way so I can pull them out when I'm sewing. Now the one thing, you wanna make sure those straps are pinned on straight. So the first one I had to undo a seam in order to straighten it out. It was a little bit crooked. Now I'm gonna just measure and double check. So that is at 5 inches exactly. Now I'm gonna go on this side and I'm gonna measure. Okay, so 5 inches is not on, well, yeah, it's not on the seam. It's just about a 1/2 inch over from the seam. So I'm gonna put the other end right here. And when you do this, you need to make sure you don't twist your straps. So see how I'm just doing it? I'm curling it. It makes a nice little curl. So when it goes up, it'll make a curl. Does that make sense? Just makes a little curl. It's definitely not twisted. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pin here. And then I line up my other side and pin the strap in the exact same spot on the other side. So your straps are across from each other correctly. So I'm just going on the other side. Here's my seams. I could measure 5 inches in. That would be probably the smartest thing to do, but I can also just line them up like this and make sure that they're exactly in the same spot. Okay, and then I'm gonna put 2 pins here. This strapping is really thick, so between the denim and the interfacing that I have, this is going to be very thick to sew through. It's even bending my pin. Oh my goodness. All right, let's try maybe a stronger pin. Here we go. Oh, that's thick. Okay. This pin seems to be a little thicker with this type of a head. Okay, so again, you're just curling it around and you're gonna line it up on this side. And I really think these straps will be plenty long enough for my daughter. When you're making a purse or a bag, it's always a smart idea to measure, pin them on, and then hold them up and measure and see if you like the way it is, so that you don't have to do any unsewing. Okay, now see how this one's getting a little crooked? So I need to make sure I get it straightened up. There you go. Okay, so the straps are gonna be about this long. That's plenty long for your arm. I think that's a really good length. Okay, now the straps stay in. They stay in the bag. One thing I'm gonna do is just pin it right about here. Well, I guess I don't have to, because I'm not gonna do anything at the bottom. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna leave it in the bag exactly like that. And then I'm gonna take my lining. So here's my lining piece. And I'm gonna get my little box corners in the corner. And I'm gonna put it in where my box corners meet. So my box corners to meet down here. See that? Okay. Box corners are meeting. Now, so get that strap back in there. That has to stay in there. I'm going to go around and pin. My seams on the side should match up. So I just have to pin there on both sides. Okay. Gotta get that strap back in there. And I want to pin up here at the top. Just in a few spots, so if it gets a little wonky under the sewing machine, it'll be super easy to fix. Okay, so you know what I did not do, but I can do it after. I'm gonna need to do a little unsewing because when I sewed together my lining, I forgot to leave a hole for turning, but that's okay. When I finish it, I can just take my seam ripper and unsew a little bit, well, probably a good bit, in order to get my bag to turn all the way through. Forgot to tell you that part. I will put a little note when I get to that section to let all of you know to make sure you leave a little hole at your bottom. Usually they do it at the bottom. I have seen people leave a hole at the side, which is what I actually did on the other one. I tried it on the side this time and it worked fine too. Okay, so here's my lining pinned really well to the top of my bag. I'm just adding a couple extra pins. It's a little floppier than what I would like, okay? So it's all pinned together. Now what I'm gonna do is just sew all the way around the top, okay? Remember, I'm gonna have to unsew, use my seam ripper and unsew a decent sized slit down here so I can pull the bag through, and then I'll sew it back up again, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm sewing over the strap, and I'm gonna go back and forth over it a couple of times because I wanna make sure that strap is really secure. In case she puts something pretty heavy in here, then I know the strap won't be breaking on her. With my lining sewn all the way around the top to the outside of the bag part. Now, this is where you would turn it, but because I forgot to leave that little opening down here, I have to take a seam ripper and take part of this seam out, and then I'll be able to turn it. And after I turn it, I'm gonna re-sew this area that I had to seam rip out, and then I top stitch around the top one more time, and the bag's all done. So seriously, if you have your jeans prepped, you could easily make this in an afternoon or an evening. So it's a nice, quick, if you have a half day kind of present, that's super special. It's definitely special if you make it into a memory one like mine is, where you're using jeans and shirts from somebody that you know has passed away and you want to do it as a little memorabilia for them. Okay, so here I made my hole, you can see there. And this stuff is so nice and soft, so it does kind of bench up really well for turning, which is nice. If you didn't use the soft and stable and you just used regular interfacing, or I've seen them made with no interfacing at all, you actually don't even need that big of a hole. But just because I used what I used on it, that thick stuff, because I like a nice thick sturdy bag, then I have to have a much bigger hole. Okay, oops, and it rips a little more. It's okay. It's gonna get sewn up anyway. All right, so here it is. You've got your bag on one side and your lining on the other. So now I have to go back and re-stitch this closed. So I'll turn it under, pin it, and stitch it closed. And then I'll tuck it inside my bag and sew around the front. So I'll be right back with that step. Got my hole sewed back up. I put the lining inside my bag. And what I do now is I turn it. I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not, but see, here's my lining, here's the bag. I want to turn it so that there's like this nice crisp seam up here. And what you can do first is iron it. I think I will do that first. Iron it and press it really well, and then you can either use binder clips or pin and pin it in place. So when you're sewing, there's this nice crisp line all the way up at the top where your outer bag and your lining meet is what you want. Okay, so I'm gonna iron it and I'm gonna put some binder clips on here or some pins, and then I'm gonna go ahead and top stitch all the way around. When you are top stitching all the way around, make sure you top stitch your straps up. Now is when you need to have them up, not down. And this is going to be a lot of bulk that you're sewing through, so go nice and slow. And you might want to go back and forth a couple of times again here just to make sure it's good and sturdy. Okay, I would maybe just go back and forth twice. You don't want it to look sloppy. All right, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I'm totally finished. Here is the finished bag. Claudia, if you're watching, I'm sorry to ruin your surprise, but here's the finished bag. I think it turned out super cute. 5 pockets and then also a pocket on the inside. That turn out cute? It's cute, it's stylish, and it's gonna have a very special memory for them. And then the other bag that I did, this is the first bag. So let me know in the comments, do you like it going this way or do you like it short and long? Which way do you like better? I'm not sure which way I like. I think I like this way better, but I'm not really sure. So I'm going to show you 3 other really quick projects you can make from denim also. So one is if you know a quilter and you want to give them a really quick, simple little gift, all you do is take the bottom of the jeans, fold it over, sew here, and you can adhere like a button or a little design. And this is just a little collapsible bag for them to put their scraps in or their thread snips or whatever. And when they're going to class or retreat, it's nice to take a little disposable quick garbage bag with them. You can use this as a water bottle holder or even a crossbody purse. So it makes for a really nice, lightweight, small tote bag to bring with you to different places. And with this one, you can see I have a fabric flower on it, but I definitely used the pocket of the jeans. And then I also put a pocket inside that you can put like your credit cards or your money or something like that, and it's velcroed shut. Added some little lace trim to make it look a little frilly, which you don't even have to do. Okay, and then the last one is this little contraption. So this cute little bag, it's just made out of denim as well. We added some little extra fabric on it to give it a little extra pizzazz. Added these yo-yos and wool flowers with buttons, so it looks like a little flower. But what it does is you pull your grocery store bags. If you bring home your groceries, throw all your bags in here, and when you're going somewhere, you need just a little quick bag for something, you can pull your bags out. Or some people even use them to line their bathroom trash bags. So there you have it. There's 3 bonus projects for you to get some ideas, and then also 2 different types or 2 different sizes of tote bags. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe so that my YouTube channel can grow just a little bit more. And I hope you have a very Merry Christmas. And please watch the next Vlogmas coming out tomorrow. I'm going to be showing you how I take a plain denim shirt and turn it into a super cute Christmas shirt. So stay tuned for tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.